Hello, my name is Brandy, and today I'm going to be talking about solution-focused therapy, which was developed in the late 70s, early 80s by Steve DeShazer and Insoo Kim Berg and colleagues. Now what they kind of set out to do was shift away from more traditional theories and find a short-term approach to treating their clients that was going to focus more on the solutions and exceptions to their problems as opposed to the actual problems themselves. So through solution-focused therapy, clients, they have the opportunity to kind of envision how they would prefer their lives to be, to think about times when the solution, or at least part of it, is already happening. And they can identify how to keep solutions once they're uncovered or identified, how to keep those consistent in the future. So as far as change goes, this theory holds that change is a constant natural thing in life, and it can often occur in a very short period of time. So also the change that doesn't need to be directly related to the problem to get clients to where they want to be. So this theory, it's pretty different than pretty much any theory that's going to take a more pathological standpoint. We don't have any stages of psychosocial development that clients progress through. And another thing that's pretty unique about solution-focused therapy is pretty much the role of the social worker or practitioner and the client. So the client actually is going to be the expert. The therapist role is to pretty much, ask questions and take kind of a hands-off approach and just let the client, be the expert of their own life. Now, solution-focused therapy also says that individuals, they have the capacity to solve their own problems, which is why we kind of take a hands-off approach. So our role is to kind of help them get unstuck, and the way we question and some of the things we ask, that can help them do that by kind of directing their eyes to the future and helping them see some light there. Now, Trepper and colleagues, they've kind of pointed out that solution-focused therapy, we can apply it in all kinds of situations that clients may find themselves in. It's been used in individual therapy, family therapy, couples therapy, for clients that may have been sexually abused or may have a drug or alcohol problem, and also for like children and adolescents that are having like maybe behavioral problems in school. So as well as being used in a variety of situations, it's also been applied with a variety of different types of clients. It's been used when working with African American clients, Latinos, Asians, American Indians, Caucasians, and pretty much any individuals from any other ethnic backgrounds. So in an article by Meyer and Cotton, they have stressed that solution-focused therapy, it is good because it does appeal to kind of a wide variety of cultures, because it assumes that there's not necessarily one true reality, and that truth is culturally relative. So the practitioner, they kind of have the role of understanding the client's goals, their problem they present with, and the solutions that are come up with based on the client's own language. So it's really important to pay attention to what they're saying and the words they use and the meaning behind them. For example, if a client were to say, hey, I'm experiencing a whole lot of anxiety, it might be good for the person speaking with them to say, hey, well, what does anxiety mean to you? Because based on an individual's culture or their background, you might get some pretty different answers of what that is, and some of the different symptoms or things like that behind the word. So moving on to the the factor of problems within this theory. The solution-focused therapists, they don't necessarily discard problems. They say, hey, problems are real, but they're probably not so set in stone and embedded in a person as they may believe. And so clients, they often develop like negative and rigid views of situations, and that kind of keeps them from paying attention to other things that are going on in the environment. So solution-focused therapy, the way it's arranged, it kind of helps clients become unstuck, and it does provide them with a little more hope for the future, it seems like, than other theories might. Like I said, the way that we word questions and the way we ask things, it can help with getting them unstuck and moving forward. For example, we might ask questions like, when is your concern? When is it not happening? Or how will you know if our work here has been helpful in your life? So there's a very future-orientedness about it. And another thing, in solution-focused therapy, we really need to try to externalize the problem and help the client realize that, the problem isn't inside of them. The problem is, a problem separate from who they are, and that kind of thing. So, for example, we might do this by asking a client, how closely does depression follow you, or does this situation ever leave you alone? Does anxiety ever leave you alone, or whatever the case may be? Alright, so moving on to exceptions. This is going to relay back to the point I made that all their problems may be real. They're probably not happening all the time. There might be times when a person's depression, or whatever the case may be, it's either not there, or it's at least less severe. So examples of ways we can cater our questions to this are, are there times when your symptoms aren't there, or when they're at least less straining to you, or are there times when you could stand up to this problem that you're facing? And to just put this in perspective, a lady might say, hey, well, I'm depressed, but, when I go to church, or when I'm jogging, or reading, things aren't so bad. So it kind of helps develop that insight. By applying the exception questions, you're kind of getting the intervention stage moving, and clients might see some strengths and possible solutions. So as far as the intervention stage goes with solution-focused therapy, it kind of begins as soon as the client walks in. It begins a lot sooner than in other theories, it seems. Alright, now, so moving on to the idea of scaling. Scaling is important because it helps clients to kind of monitor their own progress, and it kind of puts things in more measurable terms for clients, and you can track their progress, at the beginning or at some point during every session. For example, you might ask a client, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is the worst things have ever been in terms of your troubles with communication in your marriage, and 10 means that your communication is great, it's better than it's ever been, it's perfect. Where would you say you are right now on that scale? And once they give their answer, you can assess for, well, what would it take to bump this up to a 6, or, whatever the case may be. And another important thing about scaling is it can be used to assess clients for their level of motivation. You might say where 0 means you're not motivated at all to move forward with this, and 10, you're very motivated. How motivated would you say you are? Could you give it a number? And then you would ask them, what's it going to take to raise this number, or, what can happen to bump this number up a little bit. Alright, so moving on to the miracle question. There are a ton of different ways to ask this, but what the common way is to just say, hey, imagine you go to bed tonight and just as normal, and you go to sleep, and while you're asleep a miracle happens. Now when you wake up, what looks different to you, that is kind of evidence that this miracle has happened. You might hear all kinds of answers to this, but it kind of, it gives kind of a creative way to, assess the client for their goals instead of just asking them, what are your goals? And the miracle question, it's good for in group therapy or couples therapy, I feel, especially because by doing this, we can kind of identify agreements among clients and similar goals that they have. Let's see. Now, I'm going to talk a little about something called the surprise task. And basically what this is, it's intended to kind of shake things up in the client's environment. Because if things get shaken up and one thing changes, then the whole system could change, which might be good for the client. And one way this could be arranged is you just ask the client to do something between the current session and the next session that might surprise another person that's connected with the problem. For example, it could be, do something that's going to be unexpected, for your boyfriend, girlfriend, teacher, employer, anyone that might be involved. So like I said, this is going to shake things up in the system and maybe hopefully initiate like some new patterns or new ways of functioning. Now moving on to something called formula first session task. This is where an assignment is given to the client at the end of the first session, and it might be worded as something like, between now and the time we meet again, I'd like you to look at some things and try to observe some things that are happening in your life where you say, hey, I want this to keep happening. So this technique, it encourages the idea for clients to look forward, and it also opens up kind of what I would say is kind of a window for the clients to identify some solutions. So what you can do is just tell them to report this back to you in the next session, and if they if it's something they would like to do, they could even journal it, and that might be a really healthy and good way to do. So moving on, I'd like to talk a little about the formula first session task. This is where basically you give the client a homework assignment at the end of the first session, and it's going to look something like, between now and the time we meet again, I'd like you to observe some things that are happening in your life, where you say, hey, I want this to keep happening, and I want this to keep happening more. So this kind of encourages clients to look forward a little bit, and it opens up the window for the client to maybe identify some solutions to what's going on. And what you can do is you can just tell them, hey, report this back to me, in our next session, or if they're into journaling or that kind of thing, that might be a healthy way for them to get in touch with, things that are happening that they want to keep happening or to happen more. So now I'm going to move on to, I'm going to talk a little about the importance of a strong therapeutic relationship. And that's going to be with any therapy that's used. It's important for the client and the therapist to connect. And solution-focused therapy, it's kind of been criticized because it is pretty short as far as the number of sessions go, and it's criticized for maybe there's just not enough time to build this alliance. However, it does seem that solution-focused therapy can build a strong alliance because, or a strong therapeutic relationship because it does allow clients to be the expert of their own lives, and it kind of gives them that control. So just to build off of this, as far as change goes, solution-focused therapy, it does assume that clients do want to change, so they do need to have some level of motivation. If they're not very motivated, it might not work, or you may have to at least incorporate some things from other theories. And then the issue of, or the matter of compliments, by complimenting the client, maybe not overdoing it, but adding some compliments in there, this lets them know that you are listening and you do see some hope for things improving. So compliments, I feel like, are a good way to build that therapeutic relationship and make it pretty strong. So in conclusion, just to wrap this up a little bit, when treating clients with solution-focused therapy, you do need to hear the problem, make it, get a good feel for what's going on, and it needs to be specific. The problem does. Listen to what they're saying and try to reflect back to them what you're hearing. And from that point, you need to, I guess the focus needs to come off the problem, and you need to aim the session in a way and direct it in a way that focuses more on solutions. Alright, well, that wraps up my description of solution-focused therapy, and so now I'm going to move on to the second part of this training, where I have recruited a volunteer to help me demonstrate how to apply some of the techniques we've talked about. Now, just to provide you with a little background, my client, he is a 24-year-old male, and he's been out of college for a couple years, and he is coming to me. He's having some problems that he feels like with drinking, and he has decided that he wants to stop this completely. And so he's come to me to try to get him moving in the right direction for this. So we'll see how it goes. Thank you. Hi, John. How are you today?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing well. So I'm Brandy. I'm going to be working with you today. Before we get started, I just wanted to review our terms of confidentiality with you. Are you familiar with that at all?
No, not really.
Okay, well, what that means is everything we talk about today is going to stay here. There are a couple conditions where I would have to break it, like if you told me that you were going to hurt yourself or someone else, or if there was risk of a child being harmed. But if something like that were to come up, I'd talk about it with you first. Does that sound okay?
Okay.
Alright, great. So why don't we get started by you telling me a little about what brings you in today?
Well, I have a drinking problem, and I just want to get it under control.
Okay, well, tell me what makes you think you have a drinking problem.
Well, it started when I was in college with just a couple of drinks, and now it seems to be getting to a point where I drink more and more, and to help me get my mind off of things, and now it's just been hurting my job and my relationships.
Okay, so it sounds like the amount you're drinking is affecting you in not just like one area, but it's kind of affecting you across the board. Do I have that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now you said you're here to get your drinking under control. Someday when your drinking is under control, what would you say that's going to look like for you?
Well, I want to stop completely. I mean, it's not something I'm proud of for sure. And it's been seen how things have been getting blown out of complete control. So I don't want to get to that point.
Okay. Well, John, I'd like to ask you why today. What made you say today's the day that I'm going to go there? I'm going to do something about this.
Well, it's been building up for a while, I guess, but now I need to get this under control. I mean, I might lose everything. A few nights ago, I drank all night and went to work the next morning drunk, and my boss caught me. So it's kind of got to a point where if I don't get it under control, I'm going to lose my job. He warned me and told me put me on a temporary suspension for a week, and told me if I don't get this problem under control, I'm going to lose my job.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds pretty serious. let me ask you, how have you managed to keep this from getting worse for you?
Um, well, I've gone to a few AA meetings and I've talked to my boss and told him that I'd get some help. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, and from what you've told me, it sounds like this has been going on for a while now. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you feel like have others noticed some of the same things you're noticing? You mentioned your boss, but who else?
Well, family and friends have. I'm pretty sure because they see me with a beer and drinking all the time, and I am sure I completely went off my girlfriend last week when she yelled at me for drinking too much. I mean, it's there. I mean, they know. They know I have. And we had to plan out, going to the movies, and I was too drunk to even go to the movies with my girlfriend. So, and my dad and my mom are pretty disappointed at me, but I guess they don't see that they're the big reason why I'm, down and out anyway. So, I mean, it's all mounting up to a lot greater thing.
Okay, so it's just all built up to this point.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: would you say that this conversation with your boss and the situation with your girlfriend becoming upset, were these kind of the points where you said, "Hey, I really got to go do something about this"?
Yeah, it's a pretty bad time. I definitely need some help. Most
Okay.
definitely.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're here today. So you made this appointment a couple days ago, right? So what changes have happened since that time that you made the appointment?
Well, I've looked at all my old friends' numbers that we used to drink a lot with them, and I poured all the beers out I had, poured them all down the sink. I went fishing sober for the first time that I can remember, and I really did had a lot of thinking I did, and relaxed time for a bit, and actually enjoyed it.
Okay, great. So by what you're telling me, I'm hearing a lot of determination in your voice. Seems like on your own, you've taken some really big steps in this process to get from where you've been to where you want to go. I think that's great. Are there any other changes you made?
Well, me and my girlfriend had a heart-to-heart, and we're on a good path, and I hope we can keep it going.
Okay.
So, I mean, and things, overall, I think I'm doing a lot better.
Okay, wonderful. So from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you've had the opportunity to see that, hey, when I cut back and, don't drink or don't do it as much anyway, it can lead to improvements, especially when it comes to, relationships that are important to you and areas like that, correct?
Yeah, the cost of drink is definitely outweighs the benefits. So I hope it's led nothing but trouble, especially my job, my girlfriend, my life, my friends, my family. It's definitely had its problems.
Yeah, in a lot of different ways. Now, tell me about a time in your life when maybe alcohol it wasn't a problem at all, or it wasn't quite as bad.
About the first year and a half at college, I mean, where things were great. It made good grades, having a blast without drinking, and then I had drunk before, but at this time it's where it got really out of control. Like this, I met some friends and wanted to go out and party and drink all the time and enjoy myself, and it mounted up a little bit more than I should have done.
Okay, all right. Well, have you been in a situation before, a similar situation where alcohol, it might have been there, it could have interfered with your life, but for some reason or another it just didn't, or you didn't allow it?
Well, yeah, whenever my family got together for dinners and stuff, I mean, I really feeling an urge to drink. Whenever all my family and friends needed me for something, I was able to put the first, but not tempted to drink. I mean, other than that, it's been pretty regular. I haven't gone no more than a couple of days without drinking in the past year. It hasn't been interfered with my job until now. I've been pretty much functional, but now it's kind of taking its toll, and I've started. I went to work drunk, so that's kind of the problems.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about maybe other times, even if it's just been for a bit, when things are going better, or when drinking isn't overtaking you.
Well, Well, I'm getting along better at home with everyone. I mean, my girlfriend definitely isn't freaking out, and I'm going to the gym more, feeling more alert and healthy, and seem to be a good road on my work. I mean, I've definitely not went drunk or anything, went to work drunk, so I mean, everything's generally been pretty good.
Okay, great. Um, where would you, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to use a scale. Where would you say the situation today is on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is the worst the problem's ever been, and 10 is the best that you could possibly hope for?
I'd say maybe a 4 or 5.
Okay, would you say it's closer to a 4 or closer to a 5?
I'd say a 5 probably.
Okay, well, what do you think, is there anything you can think of that might bump that up to a 6 or maybe even a 7?
Um, Maybe talk to my friends and family to tell them that I'm getting help, and that I need the support, and maybe talk to my boss. I mean, my boss definitely knows, but I mean, he probably could help out too. I could ask my friends to invite me over when they're not drinking or trying to convince me to go. There's a few
Yeah.
things I could do.
So that way you can still maybe keep the relationships with your friends, but just maybe in a way that's better for you, right?
I can see that.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything that might act as a barrier for you when you're trying to, do what you're trying to do?
Not that I know of. I'll just be honest with you. I mean, tell them that if they're really not wanting to help me to see changes they're asking for, then they're not probably going to get me out the party as much. I mean, it'll probably be about the same.
Okay. Now, John, tell me, how will people, your family, your girlfriend, your boss, friends, these are some of the people you've mentioned, or anyone else, how will they know when you've bumped up a point on this scale?
Well, they'll see me happier, more control, everything that I've noticeably less drunk. My girlfriend will look at me the same way she used to. I won't show up to work half drunk or more. I'll be definitely more productive. I'll get back into fishing more like I used to. My brother, my grandfather, and my family.
Great. So you said for today you're at a 5 on the scale that we talked about. Now, if we could think about a different type of scale, the same one from 0 to 10, but a different question. How committed would you say you are to controlling this? Could you give it a number for me?
I'm committed. I mean, all of the negative things about drinking hit me at once. I finally see how much I've got to lose. I mean, definitely my girlfriend, my job. I'd probably say at least about an 8.
Okay. Wow, that's a high number. That's great. So, what would you say is going to help you the most in achieving what you're setting out to do?
Well, I think maybe remembering how horrible I feel right now, and knowing that I don't want to be back in that point again. I mean, maybe planning more specific things like future focusing my attention to something more positive, like getting married, getting a job, buying a house, and getting into more like a routine like I have now.
Great. Now, just to shift gears a little bit, I'd like to ask you kind of a strange question. You're going to have to use your imagination. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, sounds fine.
All right. Now, I want you to pretend like tonight you go to bed as normal, and while you're asleep, a miracle happens. And when you wake up, the problem that you've presented with here today, it's solved. Now, how would you know that this miracle happened when you wake up?
I don't know. I won't be drinking now for sure. I feel like I was in more control. I'd be happier without having to use an alcohol substance. I won't feel so distanced from everyone. My family will communicate more, and we'll have more spending time together. Stupid things like happened like when I was younger. My parents dragging me into the middle of an argument won't come back into my thoughts at all, or anything like that. I'll definitely be more humble.
Great. What else?
I'll be spending more time with my old friends from school that don't drink, and I'll be more productive at work, and I won't feel tired and fed up.
Okay, awesome. So who else would notice that a miracle has happened besides yourself?
Everyone that's been affected by my drinking, and those who have heard and talked or having a problem, my coworkers, my girlfriend, and we'll go from there.
Okay, great. So I see that our time's coming to an end today, but I'd like to have you come back to have another session if you'd like. How does that sound to you?
That sounds good.
Okay.
I definitely would. I I've definitely got help since I was talking to you today, and I'm feeling a little more optimistic about it.
Okay, great. So I'd like to assign kind of like a little homework assignment. Does that sound okay?
That sounds alright.
All right, great. So between now and the time we see each other again, I'd like you to try to observe some things that are happening in your life where you say, hey, I want this to keep happening, or I want it to keep happening more, that you feel can reduce your alcohol consumption or get to where you want to be of not drinking at all. How does that sound?
Sounds like a good plan.
All right. Well, we'll talk about it when you come back in.
Alright.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So now that I've presented the solution-focused approach and demonstrated this in a role play, I am going to talk just a little about some of the advantages and disadvantages I found based on the skit with John. And then I'm going to actually reflect a little bit on my own behavior as the therapist in the situation we saw. So just to talk a little about the advantages that stood out for me. Based off of just the first session and meeting John for the first time in the skit, I felt like he was fairly hard on himself and probably pretty motivated compared to many of the clients we see presenting with substance use concerns. So on one hand, it was really nice to take advantage of his motivation that I saw and move forward maybe a little faster into figuring out what works for him and what are things that can help resolve this concern, as opposed to using another theory where we might spend more time talking about his actual problem. So we got to it was really good to focus on more of the solution for him. And another point that I wanted to make, beginning pretty much right away, at the point where I asked, John, what have you been doing since the time you made this appointment a couple days ago? We were able to see that he was doing a lot of things on his own to, address his concern of drinking. I mean, he poured out all the beer. He deleted some numbers that he felt would be tempting for him to go out and party and drink. Or also, he mentioned, I believe, that he communicated with his girlfriend, which seemed to be, pretty important to him. So it was good that, this was an opportunity to help him see something that he was doing right. Now to talk about some of the disadvantages that I see based on my role play with John, I really felt the urge to address what John mentioned about his family and how maybe they had been kind of a big part of what was going on as far as his drinking, or at least some part of what was going on. And so maybe I could have addressed this with him a little more in the beginning in order to get a more clear picture of what he was presenting with. But at the same time, I was really trying to stick to solution-focused techniques and use more future-oriented questions as opposed to what had gone on early in his life, or at least before this time in his life. And he made it pretty clear in the beginning that he just wanted to cut alcohol from his life. That was his goal. So I tried to stay focused with him on this one specific goal. But the good news is, maybe when John comes back, other theories can be incorporated in, and we can hopefully address some of the family matters and situations from his past that he had mentioned. I believe he had mentioned like his family, his parents kind of maybe drug him in the middle of their problems and their arguments. So maybe in the future that can be addressed if it's something that John would like to talk about. Now moving on to my personal behavior as the therapist. Well, I've realized that I say a lot. Like, I'm probably doing it now. It's something that I don't really even realize that I'm doing. I did it as, while I was asking the questions to John, and when I responded to him, Like I said, it's something I didn't even realize I was doing. I imagine this is it's probably irritating the clients in a way, or at least slightly distracting and irritating to them. So I imagine that, little things like this happen to a lot of helping professionals that they don't even realize they're doing, but it is really something to be mindful of as far as your interaction with the client goes. Another thing I noticed, I was really looking down a lot at my notes just to try to, I guess, stay focused on what John was telling me, and maybe I was focusing more on, how am I going to respond to what John is saying, instead of maybe being completely there, present with him. So I feel like this can really create a distance as far as building the therapeutic relationship. The client needs to know, hey, this therapist, they're here with me, they're present, and they're hearing what I'm saying. So, alright, moving on. But as far as actually applying the techniques from this theory, I probably needed possibly to go slightly more in depth, just a little bit, as far as his presenting problem went when he came in, and get maybe some more specific details to get a more clear and accurate picture of what was going on. So figuring out maybe how much he had specifically been drinking when he went to work, or how much he tends to drink when he goes out with his friends, that probably would have been a good in getting a clear picture of the problem. And he had mentioned that when he drinks, he's trying to take his mind off stuff. Well, it probably would have been okay to say, well, what does it mean when you say you want to take your mind off stuff? What is stuff to you in your life? So anyway, just to wrap this up a little bit, I did find solution-focused therapy very helpful. It is pretty clear that even though when we're first learning about solution-focused therapy, it does seem really easy to understand. It's pretty straightforward, as far as questions you can ask and the type of techniques to apply. It's pretty simple to understand at first glance, but when you do start practicing, it does seem slightly difficult to apply it. It seems like it takes a whole lot of practice, and the practice, it helps make sure you're asking the right questions and you're properly applying the techniques. So that wraps us up. Thank you for watching, and that's going to conclude my training of solution-focused therapy.